Welcome to a return to Oneness. My name is Eddie, and I help people open their hearts. Today's discussion is Learning to Master Your Triggers, Part 6. Step 4. Choose to release the story. Most of us love a good story. We look forward to those times when we can curl up with a good book and let the content whisk us away to some place, some time that is far removed from our ordinary, mundane lives. Whether it is a novel or a movie, we relish the distraction from the all too often struggle of everyday life. Yet we all know that when we turn that last page of a novel, or the closing credits start rolling at the end of the movie we have been watching, we must return to the world and all of its troubles. Unless we are reading a work of nonfiction or watching some form of one, whether on television or in a theater, we all recognize that we were briefly absorbed in a fantasy world, a netherworld of outrageous characters, often given superhuman powers so that they can combat and overcome the evils directed toward them. Even though we knew that what we were reading or watching wasn't real, we nevertheless enjoyed the time spent away from the doldrums of working, cleaning, raising our children, or going to school. While we realize that most of the stories we read or watch are nothing but complete fiction, we nevertheless hold onto our stories because of the belief in their reality. For our stories seem to define us. They helped to shape who we believe we are. And many are as attached to their stories as they are attached to the people they love. Regardless, a story is just a story. And when you dive into the implication of the word story, you may be surprised to learn what the attachment to your story has wrought within your own life. There will be those who are listening to this discussion and will simply turn away, turn it off, and will never return to it. Some who are listening will become outraged, declaring that what they have heard is nothing but a lie. Everyone has the right to interpret the words they will be hearing any way they choose. After all, everything we experience within our lives can be traced back to the choices we have made. However, all that is asked of you in this moment is to listen to the following words in an unbiased manner. This discussion might trigger some people. You, who are listening in this very moment, might even be one of those triggered. Just know that this too is okay, for the purpose of this discussion is to help you learn the art of mastering your triggers. Therefore, if possible, listen to this portion of the discussion and remain cognizant of anything that might trigger you. For there is no time like the present moment to begin working the steps laid out before you. As you have already guessed, you are at the halfway point of progressing through the steps. However, it is also at this point where many will choose to cease their journey through them, for they will believe too much is being asked of them. Yet, nothing is being asked of anyone save this: to make the conscious choice to release the mental self-narrative which has kept you bound to the past. For until you make this conscious decision, you can but continue to create experiences where you are triggered, resulting in an ever-expanding field of conflict and drama. If you are ready to learn why the stories we tell ourselves are so destructive to our peace of mind and overall mental stability, you need look no farther than the word story itself. Besides carrying as one of its many meanings an account of incidents or events, it also carries with it the meanings of fictional narrative, the intrigue or plot of a narrative or dramatic work, a lie, as well as a falsehood. However, the word story has the archaic meaning of history, and it is in the word history where you will find the destructive intent behind the stories we tell ourselves. The word history has, as one of its many meanings, tale, which carries the implications, an imaginative narrative of an event, as well as an intentionally untrue report. Yet, it is within the origin of the word tale as to where the problem with holding on to our stories is found. For the word tell comes from the Old English word talu, which came from the Old Norse word tala, meaning talk. Therefore, our stories are nothing more than the incessant self-talk that is constantly going on within our minds. However, it is this self-talk that ultimately creates the experiences we have. For the self-talk forms the thoughts, thus the energy that is released into the universe. And as you now know, the universe simply responds to what we are thinking. For the universe listens to the self-talk happening within our minds, and without judging any of it, simply responds by helping to create the experiences we have under the guidance of the spiritual laws. In addition, most of the self-talk that goes on within our minds is fixated on the past, especially what happened and how we could have handled it better or differently. Yet much of the self-talk that clouds our minds is the insatiable need to plan for the future in the hopes that we can control the outcome. The problem lies in the fact that we are absent to the present moment because our minds are literally somewhere else. However, most are unaware of what the self-talk creates within their lives, because most believe that everything is happening to them rather than by them. And herein lies the belief in victimhood. For most people would rather blame the circumstances in which they find themselves on others, society, or the world around them, rather than accept the responsibility that they are the creators of the world they experience. And this belief, this thought pattern of victimhood, is only strengthened by the self-talk within their minds and the judgments made with each perceived instance where they believe they were victims to someone or something yet again. However, there is a darker side to the self-talk that we allow to continue without ever giving any serious consideration to what we are doing to ourselves. what is this darker side? It is but this: the self-talk within our minds prevents us from experiencing the peace that can only be found in the current moment. And without peace, we cannot experience Christ consciousness. Therefore, the self-talk prevents us from not only being in the current moment, it prevents us from making any real necessary changes to how our lives are unfolding. Thus, the future will be exactly like the past, filled with conflict and drama. Yet, this need not be. But in order to change the future so that it isn't simply a repeat of the past, you must make a conscious decision to choose again. In other words, you must be willing to think differently. But what does it mean to think differently? To think differently requires that you stop judging everyone and everything. Most believe this is impossible. Yet, what seems impossible for you is completely possible with Christ. And when you live in and from Christ consciousness, you will come to think differently. For rather than judging and reacting, love becomes your primary thought. And since God is love, your thoughts are from Him and of Him. Judging others will become a thing of the past, as will judging yourself. For you will come to only love others as well as yourself. As such, you will be living in accordance with the only two commandments given by the Master when He said, "Love God with all of your heart, and with all of your soul, and with all of your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it: love your neighbors as yourself. All the laws hang on these two commandments." Recognize that Jesus did not state all of the commandments hang on these two commandments. Instead, He said all the laws hang on these two commandments. In other words, the commandments given by the Master literally reflect the 12 spiritual laws. And when you live by and from Christ's consciousness, you will be living in direct alignment with the laws of God. In truth, in reality, it is but your joy to do so, for God's will and yours are not separate. They are one. Think once again at what the Master asked of us. He asked us to love God above anything else. And since God is in everyone and in everything, then loving others becomes natural. For when you live in Christ consciousness, you will come to know that you are one with everyone and everything, including God, because you will no longer see differences. Instead, you will celebrate them, for you will know the differences add to the whole. They do not take anything away. Therefore, when you live in Christ's consciousness, you are living in your true identity, for you will be living in and from love. You will no longer treasure your story, because you will no longer be living only from the past. For you will know that the only moment in time that matters is now. However, More importantly, you will have released your false identity. And this is because you will have relinquished passing judgments on anything or anyone. For you will know that making judgments opposes Christ consciousness and only creates conflict. The fourth step, then, is where you actively choose peace. For you are declaring that your treasure is peace, and that you treasure peace above your story, the self-talk, which has until now defined you. With this step, you are solidifying your desire to truly change your life, because you are relinquishing your false narrative, the false identity that your self-talk created and sustained, for your true identity, your identity with Christ consciousness. Therefore, when you recognize that you were triggered by something someone said or did, and you have progressed through the first 3 steps, but are still feeling the tug within your mind to react, know that it is a product of the self-talk occurring there. Do not become discouraged. Rather, silently repeat the following truth statements to yourself. Continue repeating them until you feel yourself relinquishing the story running through your mind for the peace found only in Christ consciousness. For peace will come as it quietly slips into your mind, filling the void where the story had been. The truth statements to silently repeat are: I consciously choose to be in the present moment by relinquishing the story I have created. I choose the peace of a mind living in and from Christ consciousness. In full conscious awareness, I choose to release my past because I choose Christ consciousness. The past will no longer determine my experience, for I choose the power to overcome this trigger by choosing to be present in love in this moment. Peace, love, and joy to you and to all who have listened to this discussion.